Hello everyone and welcome to the Reviewing Mentorship Cohort. This is the 5th of December and we have among us Bob Killen, the co-chair of SIG Controvex, and he's here to speak about reviewership in general and with respect to the reviewership mentoring cohort that has been going on for a few months now. And over to you, Bob.
Figures do the intro right as I'm taking a swig of a drink. Hey folks, as mentioned, I'm chair of SIG Contributor Experience. I've been involved in the project since, 2017 is when I really started getting involved more, but have been using it and doing things here and there all the way back in 2014. I'm also a member of the Community Steering Committee, and have sort of SIG Contributor Experience is sort of charged with sort of helping manage all the fun processes of this stuff. And so things like reviews and the sort of our automations and the other things around it sort of fall right in its wheelhouse. Out of curiosity, how many people, if anyone, was here in 2019 by chance? Okay.
Contributing to Kubernetes?
Contributing to Kubernetes, checking out stuff on like the YouTube channel, anything like that?
No.
Okay.
Is it 20?
So one thing that I just want to get out here, it's like my number one resource that I give to people on reviewing, is Tim Hawken actually did a talk back at the Contributor Summit in 2019, essentially how to be a badass code reviewer. I just dropped a link in chat. For those that are like, I tell anyone and everyone, it doesn't matter if they're working on Kubernetes or other things, that is an excellent talk to watch. I tell people here internally at Google that they should watch it. It's an excellent breakdown of sort of like both how to review PRs and things like that, as well as how to make sure your PR gets approved, or making it easy on your reviewers. So to actually like flip this around, what all have you found difficult so far with your getting PRs reviewed or reviewing others' PRs?
The time delays.
The time delays in terms of like well, getting someone to actually review the PR?
Yeah, both, like people who react and people who review.
Yeah. So one thing that is definitely a problem is, well, just as you said, in terms of getting the reviews, a lot of that falls back to we do have reviewers that are pretty overburdened, and GitHub notifications are kind of a tire fire. So a lot of times there are like, I've certainly been pulled in to review things and I missed the notification on all that. The one, do you know about like owners files and chasing down like potential other reviewers?
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say, like, that in terms of getting your PR reviewed, I highly recommend basically just popping over the owners files and chasing down some of the other people in there if your reviewers aren't necessarily reviewing your PRs. And for you as reviewers, we actually have a published set of GitHub Gmail filters. If you use Gmail, one sec, Kate's dot. Let me pull up the link. Some rules that can help you stay on top of the notification hell, and being flagged for stuff that you're potentially assigned, and just being able to get back to people. One big thing is, like, if you as a reviewer once you are added to a file, like into an owner's file and all that, is helping, manage expectations and giving people a much better experience. So if you're assigned to a PR and you don't have the bandwidth to review it, at least comment on the issue and potentially tag in someone else from the various like owners files. Especially like if you happen to know that they might be, active in Slack or elsewhere, just to help, make sure that you are, it's like managing expectations. If you're too busy to review it, it's, nice of you to potentially tag someone in that can. Let's see, I don't know. Works. Don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but guess you get over that. Honestly, that just comes with time. I encourage everyone to review PRs, even if you aren't necessarily assigned. The other thing that can be super, super handy is like I've popped on calls with other people to, we'll collectively review a PR, which can also help with, sort of building that confidence, or, just be like bouncing off that idea off someone else. It's like, hey, does this comment make sense for here or not? And that can sort of like help at least, build up a little bit of that expertise. Sorry. Some other like general things that's like perfectly fine to push back on is making sure, like, telling people, hey, can you break, like, especially when it comes to like extra large PRs, is like, hey, can you break this up into, multiple logical commits? That just makes it a lot, like, it's okay as a reviewer to push back on a PR, to be like, hey, can you do this change to make it easier to review? Good example, like I've seen people that will do both like their code change and like the generated code is the same PR, and that makes it really frustrating. So if you can commit your code change as one PR and the generated code is another one, that makes it a lot easier. And it's, again, perfectly fine for you to push back on someone else and be like, hey, can you please do the same? So I've kind of been ranting here about some of the bigger things that I've seen that can be useful. But does anyone else have any other challenges that they've, sort of stumbled across? Okay, how about Mache? I know you've been reviewed a bunch of stuff. What are common things that you've seen that you wish people would do differently?
Tests. Adding tests is probably the first one that always catches my attention. A very good. Unfortunately, we don't have a automatic way to verify that, but I've been doing that very frequently manually. It's pulling down the PR, run the unit test if they are added against a not fixed code to ensure that it actually fails before applying the fix. I've caught a couple of PRs where they were explicitly not failing without the fix, which basically means the test is not checking what the bug is claiming is fixing. The fix was correct. The test was missing the failure. And I did call it out a couple of times asking, this is fine, your test is also reasonable because it was touching some use case, but it is not failing before your fix. And people did provide additional unit test covering that particular cases. So that's definitely one of the things. Given the recent changes, because way in the back, I don't know, like 2017, 2018, what we've been used to do, we've been splitting the API and, for example, controller changes or other pieces of the code into separate PRs. The recent guidelines are basically to squash everything or put together everything in a single PR, which makes the super large PRs even larger. But even still, like Bob mentioned, asking to have API changes in one commit, generated changes in a second commit, controller changes in a third commit, or whatever other area you're touching. That is so much helpful, especially if a PR is touching several areas. It does help because the person from the controller can focus only on the controller changes. The folks from the API can only focus on the API stuff. The generated changes can be mostly ignored because we have all the tooling around it that are ensuring that the generated changes are working as they should be, and most often than not, they are being also hidden by default by GitHub because we added the rules to not to show them. So you really have to be hard-coded person like Jordan or I don't know, maybe Tim, who are actually looking through those generated files. I did look through them a couple of times as well, but just out of curiosity. But I'm not personally checking them by hand. Like I said, there are tools that are checking that.
Yeah, the whole splitting the commits thing is honestly like one of the, I think the first real big tips I can give to people, because like GitHub makes it really difficult to review extra large PRs. And being able to like review it just by commit makes it so much easier. The like other, I think, big thing is, you know, as new people come in and aren't necessarily familiar with like, you know, our code freezes and the other things around that, is just like commenting on some of that stuff. So like, hey, you know, or like I'm, you know, going back to the whole managing expectations thing. If you're rushing to get like a KEP in or get some PRs in, just dropping a one-liner and saying like, hey, I'm really busy right now, but I can get to reviewing your PR after, you know, this next deadline, just is really nice for people, and just helps both like it helps you as a reviewer in terms of managing your actual bandwidth, as well as, you know, just being a nice thing for the person that submitted their PR and might be, you know, waiting on the review and waiting, like, you know, the waiting is something we're all very familiar with, just to sort of get an idea of when they might be able to get back to it. Another kind of random thing, are you all familiar with a Kubernetes? Okay. So this is a tool, again, sort of going back to helping manage notifications and things like that. This can give you a little dashboard of things that might need, like, well, its current status needs review, approved, all that, and things like you've been pinged on. If you prefer to, you know, like just stop all your GitHub notifications and just use something like this. But I know, especially those that have been around in the project for quite some time tend to use this over, like they've given up on their notifications and use little things like this or custom triage boards to sort of like manage their review queue. Tim Hawken also sent out an email recently about how he's planning on changing, like how he reviews, especially like extra large stuff. Yeah, I get over 300 emails a day from GitHub usually, and sorry, responding to a comment in chat, and it's largely all noise, even with my filtered rules. For what it's worth, as a FYI, we do have like the GitHub admin team meets with GitHub on a regular basis. they are working on some improvements that I hope will land next year. That should make notifications a bit more manageable, like being able to subscribe to stuff with label filters.
What I also like to do from time to time is I'm gonna ask folks if there are some, I can't remember how frequently, but you can always ask folks to ping you on Slack very frequently, and that goes back also to the recommendation that Bob was mentioning. What I will do is I'll ask them, oh, if you just ping me on Slack in a week if you don't see me responding because whatever, the GitHub notifications are a mess and I'm not able to go through, or since I know that I looked through a PR, everything looks mostly okay and there's only some couple nits that I do want to get fixed before merging the PR, I'll let them know. Just, you know, try to figure it out, fix it, and then ping me on Slack to get it tagged and merged and ready for shipping.
Yeah, honestly, I think more of the finding a reviewer and getting stuff reviewed happens in Slack than GitHub itself a lot of times. Sorry, going back to breaking up PRs into smaller commits. You'll say code plus a single commit is better code in one commit than tests in a separate one, especially if you're adding a relatively large amount of tests. My gut is it kind of depends. Mache, do you do you have thoughts?
Hold on, let me read the question. I am doing a couple of things at the same time. Code and tests are usually together. So I usually try to divide by not code and test, but rather by area. Only in rare cases I'll divide, but it's still, I would prefer to have code and the appropriate test. Same files again as another logical change, then creating the second commit with those logical changes where both tests and code changes match would be my preference. I know that, and I've seen people do both ways, where the division is either by, oh, these are the controller changes, these are the controller tests, and so forth. But I personally prefer, and that probably depends on the reviewer, to have a logical change containing both of them together. That's my answer.
Yeah, so I guess, does it make the most sense to you to keep them together or to break them up? So that's not necessarily, you know, clear advice, but
yeah, one thing I was thinking about was the drive to have more tests, and like having people add tests may not necessarily be pertain specifically to their change that they're trying to do in their PR. And so that's the only place where I could even see it really being used, where you like code change and the tests that you're adding that pertain specifically to your code change, and then if you're going to add extra tests, like add extra commits for that.
yeah, I do the same. Or, you know, potentially break those other, like if you're touching another area, potentially break that into a separate PR, unless it, you know, really makes sense to group it all in with your PR. Again, as reviewers too, again, it's perfectly fine for you to push back on people who are submitting stuff to do that sort of thing. It just will make it easy on everyone. And beyond making a review easier, can you imagine like going back and like trying to like get blame and figure out, try and chasing down where something might have happened? It'll just make it easier. are there any other challenges or things that people would like to talk about in terms of, reviews and PR reviews and all that other fun stuff? I guess one other thing, it's okay to, change your opinion on stuff. One thing that I have seen people fall in a pattern to is they might have reviewed something and, they made a comment, and after discussion, the person's proposed change, or someone might have a, change of opinion or explaining it better. One, it's perfectly fine then to oh, I'm sorry, I understand now. But if you didn't understand it, it's likely someone else probably wouldn't understand it too. So it might mean that it's worthwhile for them to, put in some more comments or something that explains some of that logic. Again, you're thinking about doing a favor to the next person that's going to be looking at this. Help setting, it might be you in, a year, and you've completely forgotten about the, what the time you spent looking at this before. So little things like that can help you potentially in the future for reviewing that stuff. So we got about 5 minutes left. Someone's got to have something that they want to talk about for the last thing.
Yeah, I guess I have some, but it's not like some important thing. But sometimes it happens. I think in Kubernetes it's not that often as in other projects. That when you are doing a review and you suggest something, and maybe sometimes it's a long review, you have multiple comments, and some people sometimes they don't go through all the reviews and skip some of the parts of the review and then just ask for review again, and then it's it gives more iterations for this process, and yeah. So I guess it's just about communication, but I don't know if it happened to you as well.
In terms of just requesting to re-review multiple times.
No, I mean that people do not address all of the comments.
Not addressing all the comments. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I know I sometimes can do that as well. I skip something by accident, but some people can do that more often, and then when it happens, you have many iterations of the review, and it gets more convoluted because so many conversations there. And yeah.
It is. When that happens, it's also okay for you to push back, hey, can you address X, Y, and Z before tagging me into review again? If it seems out of line, or they're doing it too much, or they're making lots of commits for every tiny little change. One big thing, having those multiple commits for the different fixes or responding to the feedback might be useful during the PR review process, but you definitely want to tell them to rebase it and squash them up into the various logical layers that make sense ahead of time. Let's see.
Yeah, I guess when you have a large number. Yep. Sorry, go ahead.
There's no label that you can add hide or squash. It's basically, but that will be only limited to PRs where it will be squashed with a single comment, because we can do that. you just apply a label, or something like that. You probably find it necessary. Unfortunately, on the bigger PRs where you do want to maintain logical structure, like we were talking earlier, yeah, those cases, you have to ask the author to do it. For the comments, yeah, there's no simple way to ensure that all the comments are addressed, other than just looking back at the previous comments that you've made, and that's literally what I've been doing. Is I'm gonna open it, the same PR in 2 windows, and compare. Oh, I had these are my comments from the last time. Let me check if all of them has been addressed, and if not, I'm just gonna point it out that this still holds. Just like Bob said, don't be afraid to push back if something it pointed out earlier isn't.
I've done the same thing with opening up my, the PR in multiple windows to do sort of the comparison to make sure everything got addressed. Okay, and I dropped the command you can use in chat to basically force the PR to be squashed. Just as I'll generally use that out of convenience and for things like docs, but people being able to squash and rebase their PR is kind of an essential skill. I have asked people to, squash it, and if they need help, provide links. But if they're going to be successful here in the project for beyond a PR too, it is definitely something that they will need. I think that pretty much covers it. We got 1 minute left, so I don't know how much tomorrow we can talk about.
Sometimes it feels like it's too nitpicky, to ask them for the squashing. I mean, when there are more general problems in the PR you want to discuss, sometimes I just keep the multiple comments be.
Yeah, I usually won't ask them to squash till the very end, and again, if it's kind of if it's docs or whatever, I'll just use the label. But if it's something other than that, then I will ask them to just do it themselves, and if they need help, provide those resources. You can also route them hey, if you need help, go ask in this channel, Contribex, sort of community contributors, and a few other places where there are lots of people that will actually walk them through how to do a rebase. Okay, I think with that we're out of time. If you do have any questions or want to talk further about any of this stuff or anything about contributing in general, I'm Mr. Bobby Tables across all the things. Feel free to ping me in DM or ping me in the SIG Contribute channel or anything like that.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Bob,
Thank you
and
everyone for
thanks,
joining the
Majid, for
session.
joining us. This really was a very cool session. This was a very cool and chill session. So yeah, I've added all the links in our HackMD file. Yeah, thanks, Bob, again for joining.
Yep.
I'll end the recording. Bye, everyone.
Later.
Thank you.